All right, so welcome back to Keepin the Comic, and today we're diving into a new series called All New Venom. Now, this is the follow-up here to the end of the Venom War, where the Venom Symbiote now has a new host, and it's a pretty good start. It's not a great start, but it's a pretty decent start here. Now, we kick things off at the trial of Madam Mask, who was the first suspect, by the way, potentially hosting the Venom Symbiote. Now, she's on trial for her actions during the gang war, which was a massive conflict between New York City's gang lords, basically criminals battling criminals. Now, Madam Mask had hired a shotgun to kill Tombstone in the gang war so that she and her army could take over the criminal underworld. And this was all culminated with Spider-Man and his friends taking down Madam Mask and a few other crime lords, which is the reason why she's on trial now. Now, this trial is happening a year after the gang war events and 3 months after the Venom War. Now, here's the funny part, right? The prosecutor is going up here against Madam Mask, literally calls her a symbiote, like right off out of the gate here. And the defense is like, yo, objection. And then he continues on, he's like, listen, I was only speaking metaphorically here, and he doesn't suggest that she's a literal piece of slime, but she did come to the city from her own world of crime to feed off innocent people. Now, all this courtroom drama, by the way, is piecing together how the gang war and the Venom War are connected from a city's perspective, discussing how these two major events here rocked New York. So then the prosecutor drops a bombshell. He's like, is there an all new Venom present at this trial? Now, this trial right here is being broadcast live, which is kind of weird for a federal trial, right? And in the crowd, we see the mayor of New York, my guy, Luke Cage, and then we see Robbie Robertson, our favorite. No, it's not, but you know, he works over at the Daily Bugle. Now, both are also suspects who could be hosting the Venom Symbiote, right? So then Luke Cage, as of course, like I just said, he is the current mayor here of New York. And Robbie's presence is significant here for a few different reasons, not just the fact that he's a suspect to be holding the Venom Symbiote, but back in the gang war, his son, Randy Robertson, was shot by Hammerhead's assassins who were trying to kill Janice and her then fiance. So Robbie explains to Luke that televising the trial brings closure to the families that are affected. But Luke is skeptical because he's like, listen, it's just bread and circuses here. It's just entertainment to pacify the masses. And then he remembers, he's like, oh, shoot, like, that's right. Like your family too, right? Because your son, Randy, was caught up in this whole mess too. So he kind of starts apologizing here. And then the dialogue here gets interesting, right? Because Robbie tells Luke, he's like, listen, I appreciate your commitment to your principles. It's one of the reasons I voted for you. But while you're worried about who might be denied justice tomorrow, thanks to this TV trial nonsense, I'm more worried about what might happen today. So then the prosecutor, as he says, is grandstanding, playing to an audience. And if his overreach causes the state to lose the prosecution, that Madam Mask could go free. And I can't just watch that, not without doing what's in my power to stop it. So this makes me pause because I'm like, so hold on, Robbie, you got the Venom Symbiote, my guy? And then Luke gives him that look and then says like, Robbie, what are you talking about? But before he could even answer that question, a not so random dude pops up, because I was about to say this random dude pops up, but it's Rick Jones, right? Now, this guy, Rick Jones, has a wild history, like a wild history. He was literally a Hulk at one point. He was also called A.I.M at one point. When he was like blue, it looked like the Abomination. He was bonded with Captain Marvel at one point. He held the Negabands at another point, and then spent time in the microverse. And listen, I am just giving you a condensed version here of who this guy is. So if you have time, look him up and you'll be surprised by all the things that he's done here. Now, right now, Rick is the new celebrity columnist for the Daily Bugle. And since the gang war repealed the Anti-Vigilante Act, the Bugle needs someone for what Robbie called the threat or menace angle, But Rick is like, listen, I'm taking the great person or kind of total sweetheart approach, the anti-Jonah, as he calls it. And you notice here that Rick is also wearing a Marvel Comics shirt, and apparently he has some sort of awareness and can kind of break the fourth wall here. And he's even written for Marvel Comics before about his own adventures, like Captain America issue #1 here that was released back in the year 2000. Now, with this man's decorated history here, we have to wonder, what exactly will Rick Jones be next? And this is where we find out that Rick Jones is suspect number 4, the final suspect here, who could be hosting the Venom Symbiote. So listen, as we're going on here into this courtroom antics, things start to heat up here when Mr. Dr. Harlan McNeil, division head of Advanced Idea Mechanics, aka A.I.M, takes the stand. So the prosecutor asks the question, you used to work for the defendant, right, Madam Mask? And then Harlan confirms, he's like explaining that during the Battle of Central Park, referring to, of course, the gang war, that A.I.M was temporarily allied with the Magia. Now, the Magia is like Marvel's version of the American Mafia, if you will, and how he took orders from Madam Mask on that day. So then Harlan points out that with everyone wearing the same yellow jumpsuits in jail, you learn to recognize who's who, and how his doctorate that he has is focused on body language, subconscious physical tells unique to individuals like fingerprints. And then he goes through all these different like Madam Mask aliases here. And then this dude says something weird. He's like, this farce of a trial is no longer necessary. And then like we see his glasses here and the screen starts to flash from his glasses and it says scan confirmed. And then he says, we have human and electronic confirmation, sir. Translocate on my signal. So we're like, what? So then enter in Andrew Forson, the scientist supreme, who shows up in this like bulky looking suit right in the courtroom. And he declares, he's like, listen, I am the one true leader of A.I.M, and A.I.M is far from what it used to be. It's become the plaything of small souls, small thinkers, and worst of all, small time hoods. And it's time to send a message about the penalty for improper use. So then Luke is like, listen, Rick, get Robbie out of here. But Andrew was like, nah, I'm not having that. Nobody is leaving. And how he's about to make an example here because this is a theater. So then Rick grabs Robbie and then they head for the door, right? And then Robbie's like, oh my gosh, he's materialized right in front of us. But then Rick is like, of course, with his like life experiences, he says he's materializing, but he has not materialized yet. Ready to take a chance? So then he grabs him and they run right through the door. So then Rick tells Robbie, he's like, listen, this is where we gotta split up because he can't chase us both here. You go find a cop, a phone, something. So then Robbie agrees. He's like, sure, I'll find something. And I'm like, that same look again. You know what I mean? So then back in the side, right, Andrew has fully materialized. It's not Andrew, it's someone else. We'll find out who. It doesn't really matter, right? But then one of his men, he asks a question. He's like, these two civilians, should we go after them? But then Forster replies, he's like, nah, we gotta take out the authority figures here first. So then Luke, he kind of like gets a little cocky, spots a little bit here. He's like, all right, I was thinking the same thing here. And then he punches Forsen. But then Forsen, he absorbs the energy, right? And then he starts to dish out that raw kinetic energy that he got from Luke Cage here. And he punches dude straight through the window. I'm like, ooh. I'm like, somebody catch Luke. But I'm like, nah, he'll be all right. So then Forsen orders his men. He's like, guard that window because nobody leaves. And how they need to be here for the execution of Madam Mask. But then he notices that she's escaping through the bottom of, or that she's escaped through the bottom of the chamber. And he's like, the tunnel? But how? Then a voice says, the question isn't how, Forsen, it's who. And then enter in the all new Venom, a new human host bonded to the alien symbiote. Identity unknown. And then Forsen shouts, he's like, we gotta kill it. It's a symbiote monster. And then Venom replies, he's like, whoa, 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 kill them. We're not an it. We're not a monster. And we're definitely not just another symbiote. And is it just me, or does this all new Venom look like the Gold Zeo Power Ranger right now? Like, listen, I'm just saying, man. So then Venom starts taking down Forsen's men. And the cameraman, by the way, like, this dude is like unfazed. He's still recording everything. Listen, props to him, you hear me? So then Forsen and his psychic Fowler, because apparently that's who he materialized, they're getting a beating right now, but they're absorbing the kinetic energy again, right? And then one says, I'm going to take Brock's head off with it. But then Harlan McNeil, he stops. He's like, hold on, wait. But that's not Brock though. And then he explains, he's like, I'm a specialist in superhuman body language. I know every Venom's fighting style, both Brock's, Gargan, Thompson, Price. If any of them were in that suit, I'd know. Whoever is piloting that symbiote right now has never been seen before. So they attack Venom, right? But he bubbles up his arm and then he starts to like absorb their hits. And then Harlan's like, a little Spider-Man in the mix there. That's true of all Venoms, but it throws me off. Even so, I could swear I've seen whoever's inside that symbiote, and recently too. I've been in custody since the gang war, so the only time I could have ever seen anyone was at this trial in this room. It was someone that is here. So realizing that the symbiote is their priority, Forsen's men let the hostages go. Now, one of them tries to take on Venom, but then listen, he gets completely webbed down all the way to the ground. And he's like, I can't get leverage. I can't break the webbing. Help me. So then the Harlan observes and he's like, Venom's webbing has always been stronger than Spider-Man since the black suit first appeared. And it looks like the tensile strength has increased. This could be due to, in my opinion here, to the new host, or perhaps the effects of the magic bullets from the Venom War series, because remember, the gold on the Venom suit here does matches those magic bullets that we did see at the very end of the Venom War. So listen here. So then like one cocky A.I.M soldier, right? He taunts, he's like, all that special webbing is just a mess on my suit. And then he's like, what have you got when your goo isn't enough? So then Venom tosses one of them, right? Like he's like big mouth, right? And then he like tosses one of them into each other. And he's like, listen, I've got judo. It just made me laugh. So then seeing that defeat is essentially imminent here, right? Forsen gives the classic, listen, I'll get you next time speech. And then Venom warns, he's like, make whatever threats you want, but you've made our list as well too. A great mistake, boys, because we're an all new Venom. So then after the chaos, right, our three suspects, or like I said, 3 out of our 4 suspects here, Luke Cage, Rick Jones, and Robbie Robertson, they reconvene here. Now Rick jokes, he's like, hey, too bad the Bugle's new Cape colonist wasn't here to see that one, right, Robbie? So then Robbie replies, he's like, Rick, grab Luke. I'd like to have a private chat with all 3 of you. So then Robbie questions Rick. He's like, how come you came back alone? You were supposed to go find a cop. But then Rick shrugs it off. He's like, listen, there's never one around when you need one, right? You know that, Robbie. You were looking for help too, right? So then Robbie admits, he's like, listen, I got lost in the stairwell. It's thin. And I was like, is it though? So then they turn to Luke Cage, who says, listen, I see where this is going here, right? Listen, I got pushed out of the building, but that's not exactly an alibi either, is it? So then Robbie sums it up. He's like, listen, so none of us here were here when Venom was, and we can't vouch for our whereabouts or each other's or Madame Mask. Because of course, like, she's the only one that's not there, which would have been stupid if she actually showed back up, right? I mean, let's keep it real now. So we're left wondering right now, like, who exactly is this all new Venom? So then later on, right, and this is the part that I didn't like initially, but I kind of warmed up to it, and you'll see why. So later we see Paul, who, like I said, of course, everyone loves, and MJ. Now, she's back from a mission and mentions events here from the Venom War, specifically the Spider-Man tie-ins that were a part of the Venom War here, how she was like unwillingly bonded to the Arachnio. So she asks Paul, she's like, hey, what about our little troublemaker here? Now, who she's talking about is Dylan Brock. And then he calls out to MJ. He's like, MJ, is that you? Finally, someone useful get in here. So then Paul tries to moderate. He's like, listen, watch your tone, young man. And then Dylan snaps back. He's like, whatever, top knot. And listen, to me, personally, I feel like this is Al Ewing's way of telling us that he doesn't like Paul too. And for that, listen, I appreciate you, Al. So then Dylan reveals, he's like, listen, I have studied the news footage. 4 people were in the room when A.I.M came from Madam Mask, but weren't there when Venom arrived. And he's like, Luke Cage, Rick Jones, Robbie Robertson, and Madam Mask herself. Get the picture? One of them has the Venom symbiote, my symbiote, and I'm not stopping until I get Venom back. So there you have it, guys. We have an all new Venom, and Dylan is staying with MJ and Paul. And listen, if Dylan keeps roasting Paul, I'm all for it, man. Especially if we keep having to see Paul in the first place. Now, I do have a few predictions here about who might be wearing the Venom symbiote. Madam Mask and Luke Cage kind of seem way too obvious here. Something about Rick Jones doesn't fully add up to me here, but there were some subtle clues pointing directly to Robbie, which might also be a way to throw me off the trail as well, right? And I'm kind of, in reality, really hoping that it is Robbie because he's a regular guy, a reporter, similar to Eddie Brock's background in a way, and I can see them going in this direction. So listen, what do you think here? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button here for the good old YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Check out the links that are in the description to follow us here on social media and also to join our Discord. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.